Hello, this is Ollie's Movie Madness, and for this video, I thought it would be a terrific idea to do a tier list ranking of different actors fan cast as different comic book characters. And this is not the entire photo album, it's really not. I have a lot of other actors as different comic book characters. But for this video, I'm just going to do a select few, like ones that really stick out to me, and I'll be judging them on whether it's good casting or if the performance will be good, or in the case of Nicolas Cage, the performance will be bad, but you can't stop laughing at Nicolas Cage's over-the-top performance. And without further ado, let's get started with the big bad Doctor Doom as Mads Mikkelsen, or Mads Mikkelsen as Doctor Doom. Straight up in S tier. Again, they should have done this at the very beginning, because, like, if you've seen Mufasa the Lion King, when you see him as Kairos, that is exactly Doctor Doom's voice. He sounds like him. Yes, he's a lion, but, like, performance-wise, he is Doctor Doom. And it just, like, makes you think, why can't he play Doctor Doom? And I can think of a really dark scene where he said to Reed Richards, "You should have killed me when you had the chance, Mr. Fantastic." But unfortunately, now you and the rest of the Avengers will face a new dynasty of me killing every variant of you. But for what it's worth, you really should have killed me when you have the chance. Like, again, Mads has that voice. That scene alone makes a great villain. And this would be a tremendous casting choice. So Mads Mikkelsen, really awesome choice. Even if he was in the 2005 Fantastic Four film, I think he would have been the best thing in that movie. He would have been really awesome. So Doctor Doom, amazing and perfect choice. And speaking of perfect choices, next up is Jude Law as Void. I'll say S tier. Not as good as Mads Mikkelsen, but Jude Law as the Void, they really should have done that. That was a missed opportunity in Thunderbolts. Because think about it, Thunderbolts is essentially an MCU equivalent to Rise of the Guardians. And I think Jude Law, if you've seen him in Rise of the Guardians, when he played Pitch Black, he had that voice. And, you know, Jude Law as the Void can say to Yelena, "Poor Yelena, you could have saved that girl, but you just let her die. Now you'll always be alone." Or, I've been making this running joke, in some other tier lists, when I talk about, like, Jude Law being underutilized in the MCU, I always think of this memorable moment where you have Bob facing the Void by himself, or in the climax, where he says, "You want to be alone, Bob? Then fine, be alone." And again, like, he mimics that voice perfectly. He is perfectly cast. It just sucks really bad with that he never got to play the villain, or a good villain. That's my major issue. Because he's a good actor. Jude Law can do it. Now, my only flaw with Law's casting is that I think he would just play a PG-13 variant of his character in Rise of the Guardians. It wouldn't be anything new, but I think a lot of people would say Law steals the show in Thunderbolts, because I feel like Mads Mikkelsen is a pretty decent choice, a really awesome choice. Next up is going to be Antonio Banderas as the Cavalier, and I'm going to say A tier. I don't think he is as memorable as Law and Doctor Doom, but I think he can pull off the Matador look. Like, he can be very intimidating. Like, he pretend to be good, but he just steals stuff. I think him and Michael Keaton, because I feel like he's a Tim Burton villain. Because I think if you put him in a Christopher Nolan movie, or like Matt Reeves, people would say this feels more like a fan fiction rather than an actual character in a movie. But I think if it wasn't a Tim Burton movie, I think it will be really amazing and really awesome. And there could be a really dark scene where he says to Batman, "Are you strong enough to face your better? Are you man enough to face me, senor?" And I think Antonio Banderas could play that off. He is Hispanic. He has the look. He has the voice. And, I think a lot of people would praise Antonio Banderas' performance, saying he is a tremendous cavalier. Now, I don't think he'll be the main villain, but probably kind of like the third villain, like a side villain. Kind of like what Victor Zsasz was in Batman Begins, how Victor was just there as fan service, so that can be arranged. That would work for Antonio Banderas, and I think a lot of people would say his outfit looks really awesome. So that is Antonio Banderas as the Cavalier. The Cavalier. Okay, this next one's always been a running joke. Q Quan as the leader, right up in S tier. Probably above Jude Law. Probably above him. Not as good as Dr. Doom, but the running joke I always get is that, if he was in Brave New World, if he controlled Indy's mind, I'll say this would be funny. And he says, "You cheat, Dr. Jones." That'll be still funny when he says, "You cheat, Dr. Jones." And he's like chucking the phone away. They're telling Harrison Ford to turn to the Red Hulk to show the world how much everyone hates him. Again, would the CGI be really stupid on Q Quan's face? Probably. But I think Quan and Ford would play off each other perfectly. It would just be really funny to see Short Round as the villain for once. Now, Indy was the villain in Brave New World, but he was more of a side villain, the secondary antagonist. Short Round would be the real villain. And I think people would just say Q Quan is just stealing the show, just hamming it up, not taking it seriously. So I think Q Quan is a perfect choice as leader. Next up is Paul Rudd as Professor Pig, and I'll say above the Cavalier. I think Rudd looks more intimidating. He has an on-screen presence, especially if you watched him in Mute. Like, he has that evil and sinister performance. And I can see a really graphic scene where he cuts Commissioner Gordon's thumb off during an interrogation scene and with the meat cleaver, and he cuts off Jeffrey Wright's hand, and he's like screaming, and Paul Rudd is just laughing like a psycho with blood on his apron, just chewing the scenery, just hamming it up the entire time. So that would be really funny. That would be not really funny, but it would be really interesting. Just Rudd as a psycho, just have Scott as a psycho, Scott Lang as a full-on villain, and we haven't seen Professor Pig in live action. And Paul Rudd is really young. He can pull it off. Now, again, I don't think he is as great casting-wise compared to Jude Law as Void, Q Quan the leader, and, Mads Mikkelsen as Dr. Doom. But I will say, though, he is a pretty decent interpretation of what Professor Pig needs to be. So that is Paul Rudd as Professor Pig. Speaking of evil villains, Robert De Niro as Carmine Falcone, and I'll say S tier above Q Quan. Look, I like Short Round as the villain, but Robert De Niro, he just looks like Carmine Falcone. He looks like a guy that can cut your throat open or chop your head off or worse, shoot you in the face. Now, John Turturro and Tom Wilkinson did a great job with their performances, especially John Turturro. Oh, and Mark Strong, who played the younger variant of him in the Penguin show. He was really good. But something about De Niro just playing this evil mob boss where there could be a really dark scene where he says to Commissioner Gordon, the Maronis are going to be on your tail. You might want to take care of them. Just saying. And if you try to screw with me, I'll have one of my associates search you. And if they don't find anything, your head will be blown off. Do we have an understanding? And I think De Niro and Oldman, if they put him in the Dark Knight trilogy, I think Oldman would just be really good at Commissioner Gordon as he always is. But then you have, just Robert De Niro just threatening him, just threatening to like kill him. And you could make the analogy that you could have him turn Harvey Dent into Two-Face, like to bring out the true monster. I think that would be a decent choice. I think De Niro and Schreiber will play off each other perfectly. So, Robert De Niro, awesome choice. Not as great as Dr. Doom, but in terms of Batman casting, I think it's really awesome. So, next up is going to be Iman Vellani as the Fiddler, and I'm going to say B tier. It'll just be Miss Marvel as a psycho with the ability to control people with her musical instrument. And the Fiddler is not even a great villain. He's pretty bland, so you can gender swap him. And I can see him, like, I can see her in the Suicide Squad, like, chicking out, like, when she's like, I don't want to do it. And Viola Davis just yells, Fiddler, turn around now. Turn back now, goddammit, you stupid bitch, motherfucker. God damn it, Task Force Sex. This is your last motherfucking warning. And then she gets knocked out by the pole. And then the Fiddler uses her fiddle to control the rats to any soldiers to shoot at Brainiac's ship. And I think her and Robert Pattinson, if he was cast as Deadshot, would play off each other perfectly. So I think Iman Vellani at the Fiddler, a decent choice. Iman Vellani can act. It'll be fun to see her play a quirky supervillain. So that is Iman Vellani as the Fiddler. You know, you gotta put this guy above Paul Rudd. Nick Cage as Electro. Now, I like Jamie Foxx. I do. I think he's funny. Like, he's just chewing the scenery like, no, I'm like, over the top. But Nicolas Cage would just go overboard where he just yells saying, alright, I'm Electro, I'm gonna kill you, Spider-Man, I'm gonna absorb all the power, I'm Maxwell Dillon, I'm Nicolas fucking Cage, I'm fucking Electro, now you die. And I think Cage would just yell and scream at the top of his lungs. He does sort of do that in Spider-Man Noir, so he can go over the top, because he likes going nuts. I'm not saying that Nick Cage himself is a crazy lunatic, but his performances are pretty crazy. I think him as Electro would make sense. I mean, he'll probably just be a throwaway character, like just there to get sprayed by a fire hydrant and he gets arrested. So, like, he wouldn't play a big role in the Spider-Man movie. But hey, you put Nicolas Cage in a good or bad comic book film, you're gonna like it. You're gonna really like his performance. Next up is going to be Dustin himself, Gaetamon Razzo as the Toad, and I'm gonna say probably S tier because he does look like the Toad, because like Dustin's like really funny, and like, you know, you can have like Dustin, aka Gaetamon Razzo, like be Toad. He sticks his tongue out and eats the leaves, and then like Jason Isaacs as Magneto. He says to Senator Kelly, Toad has a wicked tongue, Senator. Like, Toad would not do much in the movie. If you put him in the first movie, Dustin would just get electrocuted, where he goes like, don't you people ever die? And then Storm would just say that stupid joke where she says, do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else. And yes, I still believe that's a stupid line, but like, Dustin's reaction to like getting electrocuted would be really funny, and there could be a really sweet moment between him and Wanda, because Wanda does start out as a villain in the X-Men universe, but Quicksilver, he kind of picks on Toad. Like, he says, stay away from my sister, because he's like very protective over her, same way Magneto, who is her dad. And I think Gaetamon Razzo and Ian McKellen or Fassbender will play off each other perfectly. So that is Gaetamon Razzo as Toad. Next up is going to be Paul Rudd as the Fiddler, and I'll say above him on the line. This is not that much new, because, like, much like I said about, Iman Vellani, the same thing can apply to Paul Rudd. I think his Professor Pig makes more sense, but The idea of Scott Lang playing a fiddle to control people is ridiculous, but it is like so funny and so interesting. And it will just be really amazing. It will just be really funny where he goes like, "Who wants to hear another song?" And then Captain Boomerang says, "I'm not in the fucking mood, mate." Like, just have Dakin Montgomery just make fun of the fiddler. And just like, getting back to a Marvel briefly, there could be another joke where he says, where Dakin Montgomery as Captain Boomerang. So he goes like, "So, how tight are those pants?" And she slaps him. And he's like, "Get your stick and paws off me, you damn dirty racist." Because Captain Boomerang's a scumbag. I think it would just be fun to have either Paul Rudd or Amon Villani, like, treat Captain Boomerang like shit. I think it would be funny. Though both of them would die in the Suicide Squad. They wouldn't live that long. And again, I think Paul Rudd and Amanda Waller would play off each other perfectly, even though he won't survive in the mission that much. And I think if Jude Law actually played Brainiac, I think him and Rudd will play off each other really well, even though Brainiac would just vaporize him with his ship, like his skull ship. That would be really awesome to see. So Paul Rudd as the fiddler. Speaking of bad performances, Nick Cage, I'm going to say as Gore the God Butcher D tier. This would just be fucking stupid. But funny stupid, because he would be miscast, because you'll have him say, "Alright, Thor, give me Stormbreaker. I need to kill all the gods. I need to get to eternity. I'm Gore the God Butcher. I'm an albino alien from another planet. I'm Nicolas fucking Cage. I'm gonna kill you, Thor." And, like, it would just be overly ridiculous just having Cage yell and shout at the screen at the top of his lungs saying, "Go on, do it, motherfucker, chop my fucking head off, God of Thunder, do it now, I'm Gore the God, but I can survive anything, I'm Nicolas fucking Cage." And I think if he wasn't Thor Love and Thunder, the movie would be more dumber, but yet Cage would be the best part of the movie, because Cage can never give a bad performance, but when you compare him to, like, Mads Mikkelsen as Doctor Doom, yeah, definitely shitty. Definitely a bad performance, but it's due to Cage's over-the-topness that makes Gore a great but really fun villain, like an entertainingly bad villain. I can see him in a crappy Thor Love and Thunder, like a crappy Thor movie directed by Joel Schumacher. I bet he'll play him in the movie no matter what. So Nicolas Cage as Gore the God Butcher, bad but outrageously funny bad, over the top and silly. Switching gears entirely, we go from a performance that will be really bad to a performance that will be pretty decent, and that is Paul Rudd as Blue Beetle, and I'm going to say above Gaten Matarazzo, and above, like, The Void, aka Jude Law. Look, Rudd has played Ant-Man before. He has, like, I like him as Ant-Man, and he can play, like, a young or adult Jaime Reyes. Like, he can give, like, a really sweet and emotional performance with his family, and there could be a really funny moments when, there could be a funny moment where, Shazam says, "So, Blue Beetle, do you control beetles, or do you just fly around like a beetle?" And Paul Rudd's like, "Very funny, you might be confusing me with a different character." That would be really funny, but the emotional stuff with his family would be really awesome, like him talking to his mother about how he could be a superhero. Can be very emotional and really tragic, but also really fun. And I think him and, if there was a Justice League movie in 2005, I think him and Christian Bale would play off each other perfectly, and then Batman could just be annoyed, because Blue Beetle is a comedian. He can be funny, but he can also be dramatic as well. So Paul Rudd's Blue Beetle, again, S tier, as you can see right there. But speaking of S tier, this guy, you gotta put him above De Niro. Idris Elba as Apocalypse. And yes, I know the picture I made looks like Iron Man, but it's still Apocalypse. I don't think there's any other X-Men villain that has been fumbled the worst than Apocalypse, because Apocalypse was really bad in X-Men Apocalypse. He was really bad. But I think Idris Elba, again, If you've seen him in movies like Mowgli, or, no, not Mowgli, that's Benedict Cumberbatch, my mistake. The Jungle Book 2016, he had that intimidation factor with the vocal performance as Shere Khan. He had that apocalypse-like voice. And you know what? If you was in the third X-Men movie as the main villain, that movie would have been a lot better, let me tell you. If you did that one villain voiced by Idris Elba, that movie would not have any issues. I could see a really dark moment where he beats up Charles in the astral plane, and he viciously tosses him and grabs him by the throat and says, "You're finished, Charles. Your team has lost. Now, unfortunately, you have to watch your beloved students die in front of you. You should have killed me when you had the chance, Charles." And I just think, Selba just doing that monologue, just him taunting Charles, Oscar Isaac he did a good enough job, but it wasn't as scary as, Idris Elba, I think Idris Elba as Apocalypse would just make you shit your pants in terms of being scared. But yet people would say Idris Elba would be amazing, where people say, oh, the movie was not that good. People would say, oh, Idris Elba steals the show. So he'll be like the Christian Bale of the film, where the performance is not great, but he is incredible to watch. And also, there could be a really dark scene where he says, "Come on, Eric, join me. We can wipe out the human race together and have all the mutants be one giant race of super mutants, and the world would be ours." And just him saying that to, Jason Isaacs, that would be really awesome. And Magneto says, "No." And then Idris Elba says, "What?" He says, "I know I've been a mutant supremacist, but I wouldn't go that far as to killing every human on Earth." And then Idris Elba yells at him saying, "You defy me, Eric, then I shall kill you." Just had that epic battle between Selba and Eric. That would be awesome. So, Idris Elba as Apocalypse, awesome choice. Probably my second favorite choice, because I think Mads Mikkelsen is a better Doctor Doom. So next up is Ewan McGregor as, Mirror Master. I'm going to put him above Nicolas Cage in A tier. Talk about an actor who has got it the worst, in the word of Mr. Paradox, the worst reputation of an actor in terms of a comic book film. Now Ewan McGregor was considered for Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, and I think that would have been really amazing, and I think he had the acting chops to do both, but I want him to play Mirror Master. He's Scottish, he had the look down, and there could be a really dark moment when he says to Flash, played by, not Ezra Miller, played by maybe, Flash is a hard one to cast. I want to say, this is just me saying, maybe Grant Gustin, the guy from the TV show. And Ewan McGregor says to him, "Your mind is fractured, Barry Allen. Let me help you fix it. Unfortunately, you and the rest of Star City will be trapped in my mirror realm forever. For what it's worth, Flash, I really am sorry." And I think, McGregor just being really menacing without needing to scream like a little girl or a fucking weirdo. Because, Ewan McGregor does not need to yell to be a villain for Mirror Master. He really doesn't. He just talks like a normal person. Just talks like an average human being. So, yeah, I think Mirror Master is really perfect. On second thought, I'll say S tier above Paul Rudd. I think that is a better choice. Because, again, I think Paul Rudd's a decent Blue Beetle, but I think, again, Ewan McGregor as Mirror Master, he just had that on-screen presence, and both him and Grant Gustin will play off each other perfectly. And just that scene where he says, "Your mind is fractured, Justice League, and you will be stuck here for a millennium, eternity." And I just think McGregor just being really menacing and really awesome. Switching gears entirely, go from a great performance to a rather silly performance. And that is, of course, Awkwafina. And look, I know a lot of people badmouth this actress, saying that she's terrible. But I always found it funny. I'm gonna put her in A tier. I'm gonna put her in A tier. No, probably C tier above Nicolas Cage as Gore, because I think Awkwafina would just die in the Suicide Squad. She'll just have a silly helmet and it's like, oh, she died. She didn't do anything. But I can just seriously Brainiac shooting people and she chickens out and she says, oh, fuck you. No way, I'm not doing this. And she runs off and then Viola Davis put the bomb, she presses the button and activates the bomb in Crazy Quilt's neck and she died. Like, it would just be really funny. Awkwafina, she really didn't have much to do in the movie. Unless it's like Polka Dot Man where she survived and the laser vaporizes her. But I don't think she'll survive all the way. She'll just die. But I think Awkwafina would be really awesome. Again, great, a fun performance, but not as good as the other performances on this list. So that's why I put Awkwafina in C tier. It will be a ridiculous performance. Next up might as well be Dr. Hector Balsack. Ke Quan as Mr. Hector Hammond, the scientist. I'll say probably above, because above Paul Rudd in B tier. I think it's really funny just have Scott have Short Round with a giant nutsack on his head, just having just saying, hello, Green Lantern. It's been a long time since you got me stuck in this chair due to that experiment. And then Guy Gardner says, I'm sorry, but what in the living fuck are you? And then Mr. Hector Hammond saying, I may be a genius, but your nutsack is not as big as my head. So there you go. My head is bigger than your nuts, Guy Gardner. Well, then again, how much skull fucking would you need to scream during a Mariah Carey song like that? All I need for Christmas is you. So I want you to scream those lyrics while I'm fucking your mind with my telepathic abilities. Well, I guess that's your dirty. I'll just say skull fucking, because you might well tell your rest of your Green Lantern Corps that Dr. Hector Nutsack gave you a little visit. And I think Quan and Nathan Fillion will play off each other perfectly. And I think people would just treat this like the MODOK scene. Like, he goes like people would probably say online, I'm sorry, but what in the living fuck is Short Round supposed to be? The idea of Short Round having a big head is actually pretty funny. Now, I will say, I think Short Round leader, Ke Quan, the leader, is much more subtle and subdued. This would just be crazy and over the top. So, Ke Quan is Hector Hammond, really awesome. Next one, this one really pisses me off because I want him to be the main villain, and that is Steven Yeun as Mr. Negative. And you know what? I'm gonna put him probably above the leader. There you go. This was the villain I've been wanting to see for a long time. I really wanted to see him played by Steven Yeun as the villain. Just want him as the villain. And look, Jean Grey, she's not a terrible villain, but again, she's like kind of out of place. If you want to know my thoughts on my thoughts on Jean Grey as the villain, go watch my spoiler-filled podcast of Spider-Man Brand New Day. You'll have a lot more information for that. But I did the idea of him manipulating Spider-Man, taking him to the negative zone, and they're like fighting, and Mr. Negative, played by Steven Yeun, he says, you should have saved your Aunt May when you had the chance, Parker. But I can make that happen. All you need to do is trust me, and all of your emotions will be gone, and everything will revert back to the way it is. And I think Tom Holland and Steven Yeun would play off each other perfectly. And there could be a really scary moment where he brutally stabs MJ with his sword, and Peter Parker screams no, and he beats the shit out of Mr. Negative And he said, there it is, the rage. The negative emotions are finally flowing through your spidey sense, Parker. Just kill me, and all of New York will know who the true bad guy of New York is. Then the Avengers will fall with you. And I think like that monologue of him just saying, all your negative emotions, just let them out and kill me. It's a great villain monologue. Steven Yeun's vocal performance will be really awesome. Of course, this is a CGI character because the negative zone is not real. And I think the ethnicity is correct, how Steven Yeun is Asian, and, Mr. Negative's real name was actually Martin Lee. That's L-I, so it's a Chinese name. So it makes sense. So, Steven Yeun, really awesome choice as Mr. Negative. Louis gonna like this one. Jack Nicholson as Kilgrave, and straight up an S tier. And I'm gonna put him above Robert De Niro because Jack is Lou's favorite actor. I just think this will be really funny, but really silly. Even if he was in the horrible Ben Affleck movie, I think Jack will be incredible as Kilgrave. He goes like to Kingpin. So, what do you want me to do? Control the man without fear. And the police try to stop Kilgrave, played by Jack Nicholson. And there could be a really dark but comedic moment where he says, you pigs are distracting me. Now get the fuck off the road. And now, Daredevil, I order you to kill Foggy Nelson. And just that scene of Jack messing with Charlie Cox's mind, or Ben Affleck, even though the movie will be garbage. Just the idea of Jack messing with Daredevil in general is really funny. He goes like, I'm not going to hurt you, Karen. I'm going to tell your boyfriend to bash your fucking brains out. I'm going to have your boyfriend mad bash them right the fuck in. And I think just Jack having that evil smile. Now, don't get me wrong. I love David Tennant as Purple Man. I really do, but Jack Nicholson is a lot more scarier. Now, unfortunately, he's retired, but just imagine a 90s Daredevil movie directed by Tim Burton, Jack just chewing the scenery, just having a ball as Kilgrave or the Purple Man is a great idea. Now, I think, again, Apocalypse is better, but actually, rethinking about it just now, I'll say above Apocalypse. There you go. But I think Doctor Doom is still the superior choice. But again, Jack's saying, your dumb cops are distracting me from what I'm doing. Now get the fuck out. I mean, just Jack being crazy. He's already crazy as Joker, but just him as Purple Man just had a lot of potential. I think a lot of people would say that Jack Nicholson steals the show. I think Lou, even if he hated the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck, he'll say, oh, the only thing I liked was Jack Nicholson. And I'll say, yeah, Jack steals the show in every scene he's in. And I think him and Michael Clark Duncan would play off each other perfectly. So that is Jack Nicholson as Kilgrave. Again, really awesome choice. Next up is Jude Law as Adam Warlock. I'm going to say above Blue Beetle. Now, Adam Warlock in the MCU, I don't hate him. I really don't. I think he's a good villain. Well, gray area character. But I think they made him a little too dumb. Adam Warlock, from what I can recall, he's a genius. But in the movie, he's just a silly character. A very interesting character. But I think Jude Law can pull off being more serious and not be a comedic MCU comic relief. And I think him and Chris Pratt will play off each other perfectly. There could be one funny joke where in the first movie he says to himself, I'm surrounded by the biggest dumbasses in the galaxy. And the Nova King, when they're fighting Ronan, the guy goes like John C. Reilly's character saying, I can't believe I'm taking orders from Goldilocks. Because, Adam Warlock is gold color. He's a sovereign. And I think Law and especially Josh Brolin, if he was in Infinity War and they just fight to the death, it would just be really awesome. I think Law and Brolin would be really awesome. And hey, Pitch Black has met Brandon and Cable from the Goonies, so that is a pretty awesome choice. So Adam Warlock, aka Jude Law, a really awesome choice. I still think Steven Yeun as Mr. Negative and the leader, played by Q Kwan, and Robert De Niro as Carmine Falcone are better casting choices. But I liked it. I like that choice. Speaking of that, Q Kwan as MODOK. I'll say A tier. Now, Q Kwan is still funny. And, I think him as MODOK would be really funny, just him being, really sinister, but also really funny. And Tony Stark, he reveals, what's in the machine. They go to the AIM base, and they see, Q Kwan's face all mushy in the mobile chair. And then, Ant-Man says, played by Paul Rudd, or, if it was in the 90s, Michael J. Fox. He says, "That's heavy." And MODOK's like, "Wait, what? You're saying I'm heavy as a barbell?" And then Iron Man says, "Oh no, he just means that this is weird." And I think if he was like the member of Thunderbolt and Q Kwan removes his mask and she goes like, "I'm sorry, but what in the bloody hell am I looking at?" And Shoran's like, "It's me. I'm MODOK." And she goes like, "That's pretty ludicrous of you coming from the dime store leader in another timeline. That's pretty intelligent from you coming from the dime store telepathic mutant mastermind." And it would just be really funny and really interesting. So Q Kwan the Leader, I think it'll work in a Iron Man movie, and you can have Adam Warlock interact with him. I think it would just be really funny. Now, the reason why I put him in A tier is that, again, I think the S tier character rankings are better, they're better choices. But I think this is a decent choice. Next up is Woody Harrelson as William Stryker from X2. And you know what? I'll say above Robert De Niro. Now, Stryker, played by Brian Cox, is one of my favorite villain performances of all time. He's really incredible as this character. He's really good, but I think Woody Harrelson can pull it off. If you see him in War for the Planet of the Apes, he plays a very vile and really disgusting human being, that being the Colonel. He has some of Stryker's mannerisms, how he hates the apes. And there could be a really scary moment where he says to Jean Grey, "No matter what you do for your team, Jean Grey, you will always be the mutant abomination that you were born to be. You are against God's creation. You are nothing. You will always be alone with no mother, no father, no mentor. Now get back in the lab." And I just think Harrelson just being downright gross and despicable of what he says to the X-Men, saying, "Your kind never leaves me alone, do they?" Meaning I hate you. You caused my wife to end her own life when she found out our son was a mutant. And he said to Wolverine, played by Carl Urban, he says, "You're really good, just leave and just let me die, and you're gonna take that disgusting creature with you. You will stay with me, Wolverine." And then Carnage gets killed by the Flood. And look, even if people found the X-Men movie disappointing, they'll say, well, Woody Harrelson steals the show as Colonel William Stryker. So, William Stryker, played by Woody Harrelson, a great choice. And I think I like him better than Q Kwan as leader, because I think he's more of a comedic villain. He's more played for laughs. Stryker is not. So that is Woody Harrelson as Colonel William Stryker. Next up is Al Pacino as Hammerhead. And I'm going to say above the leader, but I think Steven Yeun is better. Now, I don't hate the MCU's take on Justin Hammer. They made him a little silly, but I was okay with it. But Al Pacino, he's a lot older than Sam Rockwell, so I think if they went with a much older take, it would just be more scary, like him just saying to Tony Stark, "I'm gonna crush your legacy. It's gonna blow up your face." And then the the name of the Starks. Your family will be tarnished and destroyed, and Stark Industries will belong to me. So, Mr. Stark, are you willing to sell over your company to me, or do I have to take it from you? And I think, like, Pacino just being downright scary, like, just have that mob boss / scary mentality. So, that would be really awesome. That scene, like, of him saying, "Give me your company or I'll kill you," is really dark. That whole monologue I just said about him saying, "You can either do it, or I'm going to have to do something drastic to you to destroy your legacy, Stark." I think that would be really awesome. So, Woody Harrelson, an actually pretty awesome choice. No, Al Pacino, my mistake. I'm still thinking of William Stryker. Al Pacino as Justin Hammer, really awesome choice. Next up is, speaking of another missed opportunity, Jude Law as Nightmare. And I'm going to say probably above Al Pacino. Again, this was one of those performances that had a lot of potential. It really did. He could be really threatening, really intimidating, and there could be a really scary moment where he's in Doctor Strange 2, and he's like confronting Wanda, where he says, "I would say have a happy fantasy, Wanda, but you won't have it anymore." And there could be a dark moment. Like much like I said about the Void, you want to be with your family, Wanda, then fine, be with your family. And I just think, like, Law raising his voice without coming off as a little crybaby, just him being all around menacing, like, just him oozing and being captivating and villainous as possible. And there could be a really dark but very funny moment where he says, "I would say sweet dreams, Peter Parker, but there aren't any left." And again, Law and Holland would play off each other perfectly. Again, this would give Jude Law another chance as a good MCU antagonist rather than a crappy one. So yeah, Jude Law's Nightmare, I can think of a lot of dark moments, like him fighting Doctor Strange in the Nightmare Realm on his horse and just trying to, like, kill the Avengers one by one, and just having nightmarish doppelgangers, like demonic variants of them fighting each other. That would be really amazing and really awesome. So Jude Law, really awesome choice as Nightmare. I can't decide which one I like better, this or him as the Void. They're both really awesome, but I think Nightmare makes more logical sense than Void. Void is more of a Thunderbolts threat. Nightmare is more of an Avengers threat. Next up is Mark Hamill as Mephisto, and I'm going to say probably above Jude Law as Nightmare. Now, Mephisto, he wasn't done bad in the MCU, but Sacha Baron Cohen was very much miscast, and I think Mark Hamill would make a lot more logical sense, because Mark Hamill is a lot more threatening. And there could be a really scary moment where Mephisto says to Doctor Strange, "You're an interesting man, Doctor Strange. Now give me the Book of Vishantis, or your whole world would die, and you can bring your beloved Christine back if we have a deal. So are you going to shake it on it or not?" And there could be another dark and scary moment with Mephisto where he says, "Oh, Scott, I know you want to see your little peanut, and you will, right after you sign this contract to give me your soul so you can live a happy life where you wasn't killed by Doctor Doom." And I think people would say Mark Hamill steals the entire show, and he does have an on-screen presence, and you can make the joke, and this is literally the joke. I guess you could say that Doctor Strange has met the Joker, or if he was in an Avengers film fighting Yelena, you could say, "Oh, the devil has met Goldilocks from Puss in Boots 2. So, Yelena, if you want your family back, then cut your hand open and sign the contract, and your family will be back together once more. Have we got a deal?" And I just think Mark Hamill would steal the entire film. Now, I will say, though, I think Jack Nicholson as Kilgrave is a better choice, along with Mads Mikkelsen as Doctor Doom. But I will say, though, I think he, aka Mark Hamill, would be really awesome. I think Mark Hamill would be a brilliant Joker, Mephisto, because it is played by the same actor. So that is Mark Hamill as Mephisto. Speaking of Jack, another Jack Nicholson character, that is, Jack Nicholson as Sebastian Shaw. I'll say above, Robert De Niro. Now, I think Jack Nicholson's, Kilgrave is much better if you think about it from his point of view. But I think if Sebastian Shaw would be at least decent. Like, I wouldn't say it would be perfect, but it would be fun. Like, he goes like, the X-Men are coming. The Hellfire Club will not lose. And if any distractions come our way, we're to get them the fuck out of the way and declare world domination so the mutants will be the superior race. And you, White Queen, will rule by my side. I'm Sebastian Shaw. You, Charles, are distracting me. Now get the fuck out before I kill you and your team dead. That's how I will make the world better for mutants, Charles Xavier. And I think, like, him and Patrick Stewart will play off each other perfectly. And again, much like I said about Mark Hamill, this is another Joker actor would play off the X-Men characters. And I think he wouldn't use his normal speaking voice. I think he would use a Boston accent like he did in The Departed. Because Jack Nicholson actually did a, pretty decent Boston accent, even though it was mostly his voice, but there were moments where he sounded like he was from Boston, Massachusetts. And I think Jack Nicholson would be really awesome, like him saying, "You'll bring me what I need, Charles, or I will kill you and your kind. Now give me the machine. Let me hack into Cerebro so we can avoid any more distractions." So, do we have a deal, Charles? And I think, like, just Charles, aka Patrick Stewart, and Jack would play off each other perfectly. So that is Jack Nicholson as Sebastian Shaw. Next up, these last two are very frustrating to me, but they're going to be an S tier, and that is Harrison Ford as Cable. Now, he's not really a villain per se, but he is an anti-hero. He is a anti-hero. He started out bad in Deadpool 2 because it's in Deadpool's perspective. So, like, in his eyes, Cable's the villain of the film. But to our eyes, Cable's more of an anti-hero. And funny enough, I made a What If episode with Harrison Ford as Cable where he gets annoyed with Deadpool and he says, here's the thing. You're not fucking funny. And, again, Harrison Ford gets annoyed with Deadpool in the What If episode. I think Ford would just say, I don't give a shit. I'm Harrison Ford. I'm in a Deadpool movie. Pay me. I'm Cable. I'm in a fucking Deadpool movie. I'm Harrison Ford. And I think it would just be funny. Also, you got Short Round in the What If episode as well. Like the family-friendly character interacting with the gruff, more grumpy character. And I think it would just be funny where Harrison Ford says, you couldn't save a relationship with a goddamn stripper. And motherfucker, I wish I could say you could die alone. But when God best jokes that you can't die. And it's just him, and Deadpool says, I'm gonna fucking fight you now. And then Harrison Ford goes like, oh, are you? And he socks Indy in the face and they fight in the car while the car is still moving. And I think Ford and Ryan Reynolds, like, again, fuck Ryan Reynolds as a person. He's a scumbag. But I think chemistry-wise, I think it would just be funny, like Ford just giving this, whatever, I'm Harrison Ford, I'm a fucking mutant, pay me, I'm Harrison Ford. And again, you get Short Round in an X-Men movie, it'll be kind of cute, kind of funny. Like, if it was in the X-Men movie, I don't think Ouroboros will play a big role, unless it's involved with the TVA, but again, Ford saying, whatever, I'm Harrison Ford, I'm in a fucking Deadpool movie, pay me, I'm Harrison Ford. And then, there could be a really funny joke where Deadpool said, that's going to be really hard for the audience to like this movie. And Harrison Ford saying, shut the fuck up. Like, just him being annoyed by Deadpool. Ford is already an annoying person. Like, he gets annoyed easily. But it will just be really funny. So Harrison Ford as Cable, really awesome. Lastly, Russell Crowe, and I'm going to say probably above Al Pacino. I think Ford is the better choice. But Russell Crowe's already a douchebag, so he can play that off, just him being annoyed. Like when Deadpool said, born in New Zealand, 84, and he's like saying, making music, making songs, flying around the world, and Cable gets pissed and said, if you sing that fucking song one more time, mate, I'm gonna throw you out the fucking car, you screwed him. And he just beat the shit out of Deadpool. He gets annoyed. And it would just be, like, really funny. Like, Russell Crowe would be really funny. Like, hey, mate, can you shut your trap for 2 goddamn minutes, mate? I'm trying to think. Or just him saying Deadpool is annoying. And then Deadpool says, you're Australian. Be Australian. Cable says, I am fucking Australian, you fucking idiot. And it would just be him and Deadpool yelling at one another while taking down Cassandra Nova. I think it would just be really funny. Again, I think in terms of muscles, I think Russell Crowe is the better choice, but I think Ford is more funny. So Russell Crowe as Cable, really funny. Just him saying shut up multiple times, saying, you're not fucking funny, mate. I've seen better jokes in an Ant-Man movie. Like, just him being annoyed with Deadpool is really funny. Now, I will say again, Jack Nicholson as Kilgrave, Mads Mikkelsen as Doctor Doom, Jack as Sebastian Shaw, Jude Law as The Void is a better choice, even though I did put Russell Crowe above those characters. But I will say, though, it is awesome casting choice. Like, really amazing. In fact, I'm going to put Jude Law here, and I'll put Russell Crowe down here. So, yeah, I think this is a pretty awesome tier list. And comment down below and let me know, do you like these fan casting choices I made? And what is your favorite picture that I made? And do you think some of these would be cast well or miscast? I would really like to know. So that's going to be it for my tier list ranking of fan-casted comic book characters. I hope you guys